Imagine spending your whole life blaming fate, then discovering the real villain was you all along. This story will hit you where it hurts and change how you see your own struggles forever. Watch till the end if you're brave enough to face your truth.
My name's Ethan Cole, and if you'd asked anyone who knew me back then, they'd have told you I was the quiet, patient type. A bit too patient, maybe. I've never been the guy to blow up or pick fights, but I remember everything. And if you cross me, well, sometimes I think karma just needs a helping hand. I grew up in a small town in Washington State. Nothing fancy, just your average American neighborhood. Trucks in the driveway, barbecue in the backyard, and neighbors who wave but mostly mind their own business. I'd spent my 20s working 2 jobs, saving every penny I could, skipping vacations, driving an old Ford just so I could someday have a place to call my own. No landlord, no roommates, no nonsense. Just mine. By the time I turned 30, I'd stacked up enough savings for a decent down payment on a house. I didn't want a McMansion or a condo downtown. I wanted something modest but truly mine. No homeowners association, no endless rules about what color I could paint my mailbox. Privacy was my one non-negotiable. I searched for months, scrolling listings late into the night, going to open houses on weekends, dragging my best friend Jake along for a second pair of eyes. Then I found it. A sweet little ranch-style place on a quiet shared block, but with a freehold title. That meant the walkway was shared with the neighbor, but the property itself was all mine. I just have to pay half the public liability insurance for the walkway, which was no big deal. The real estate agent was a local guy named Travis Miller. Travis was one of those slick, well-groomed guys you see at every open house. White smile, gold watch peeking from under his cuff, always ready to slap you on the back and call you buddy. He'd grown up here, so it felt like I could trust him more than some big corporate broker. To be fair, I didn't know him personally, but everyone seemed to. Small towns run on connections, and more than once I heard, "Oh, Travis, yeah, he sold my cousin's house. Good guy." That's the thing about small towns. The grapevine makes people feel safer than they should. After a short back and forth, I signed on the dotted line, handed over my down payment, and a month later, I had my own keys jangling in my pocket. I remember that feeling, walking through my front door alone for the first time. It smelled like fresh paint and possibilities. I set up my little grill in the back, bought a hammock for lazy Saturdays, and for the first time since I was a kid, I felt like I could breathe. 5 months later, my peace cracked. One evening, there was a knock at my door. It was my next-door neighbor, Mr. Parsons, a retired Army guy who owned the other half of the walkway. He was polite enough, handed me a folder, and said, "Hey, Ethan, here's the insurance paperwork for the walkway. I pay half, you pay half, same as always." I thanked him, but when I flipped through the folder later that night, I nearly dropped my beer. It wasn't just a liability policy, it was a full-blown strata insurance plan, which meant my home wasn't technically freehold, it was under strata. For anyone who doesn't speak legal real estate nonsense, that's a fancy way of saying I owned my unit, but a board could dictate rules, maintenance, and fees, just like a mini homeowners association. It felt like someone had sucker punched me. I dug out my emails with Travis, the listing printouts, every scrap of paper said freehold. I called my lawyer, Sandra, who'd done my conveyancing. She was stunned. She double-checked the title, and sure enough, buried in the fine print was the strata notation, misfiled but legally binding. Sandra did everything she could to make things right. She even refunded part of her fee, even though the mistake wasn't really hers. She suggested I could sue Travis, or at least take him to mediation. So I did. Travis sat across from me in that cheap community mediation room, same smirk, same watch, probably fresh from closing another deal. I laid out every email, every printed listing, highlighted in neon yellow. He didn't even flinch, just leaned back in his chair, shrugged, and said, "Look, mistakes happen, buddy. If you're so unhappy, sue me."
He offered me a measly $1,000 to shut up and go away, $1,000, after I'd sunk nearly every dollar I had into that place, only to be trapped in strata rules for who knows how long. I could have lawyered up and dragged him through court, and part of me wanted to. But my mom was sick at the time, my job was stressful, and every lawyer told me it could take years and thousands of dollars I didn't have. So I let it go, on the surface. I paid my dues, went about my life, checked on my mom, worked overtime, mowed my little lawn when the strata bylaw said I could. But every night, sitting on my porch with a cold beer, I'd replay that smirk on Travis's face. I'm not a violent guy, never been in a fight in my life, but I believe in patience, and I believe that if you wait long enough, everyone trips over the mess they've made. Of course, sometimes you just need to give them a little nudge. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I wondered what Travis was up to outside of work. He always bragged about his big trips and fancy dinners, so I found his personal Facebook page, wide open for anyone to see. It was all shirtless boat selfies, golf trips with the boys, and one album caught my eye. Boys on Tour, Thailand. I'm not the jealous type, but that album screamed midlife crisis. There he was, hugging bar girls, cheap cocktails in hand, trying to look 20 again. His wife, Megan, bless her, was nowhere to be seen in a single photo. I saved those pictures. Then I dug deeper. Business registry, property records. It wasn't hard. The man used his home address for half his business dealings. It was practically on his LinkedIn. That's when the idea started to brew. Not rage, not vandalism, not a lawsuit. Something slower. Something poetic. Something memorable. I swear, once the plan started forming in my head, I slept better than I had in months. It wasn't going to cost me a dime. No lawyers, no angry confrontations. Just time and my stubborn nature, which I had in spades. See, people like Travis think they're untouchable. They move through small towns like local celebrities, shaking hands and flipping keys, all smiles and empty promises. But underneath, they're just fragile little men wrapped in shiny suits. All you have to do is pull the right thread, and the whole tailored image unravels. I decided my thread was going to be a woman named Elle. Completely fictional, conjured up over a beer and a notebook at my kitchen table. Elle would be an echo from Travis's sleazy trip to Thailand, a ghost from the Boys on Tour that would follow him home and stick to him like a bad tattoo. On the 1-year anniversary of my closing day, the same day I'd found out I'd been screwed over, I sent my first little gift, a dozen long-stem roses to his home address with a simple card. Dear Travis, remembering you on our special day. She has your eyes. Love, Elle. I wish I could have seen his face when he opened that, but imagining it was almost as good. The beauty was in the mystery. I didn't spam him. That would have been too obvious, too easy to dismiss as a prank. Instead, once a year, right on schedule, he'd get a bouquet, always with a slight twist on the same message. Sometimes roses, sometimes lilies. Always on our special day. Always love Elle. I didn't stop there. Every few months, I'd pop onto a cheap postcard site and send him a card from Thailand or Bali or somewhere else exotic. The messages were never explicit, just enough to keep the poison dripping. Thinking of you under the same stars, love always, Elle. One year I even sent a postcard with a cheap photo of a toddler I found on a stock site, captioned, "Say hi to Daddy." Cruel? Maybe, but after what he did, I had no tears left for his peace of mind. Meanwhile, life went on for me. Mom got better, thankfully. I got promoted at work, traded the old Ford for a decent Chevy, even started seeing someone new. Her name's Natalie, and she has the patience of a saint for putting up with my quiet, scheming side. Every June, I'd mark the date on my calendar. Flower Day. Order the bouquet, write the card, send it off. Never too much, never too little. Like clockwork.
It took longer than I expected for the cracks to show. Travis kept up appearances for years. New car, fancy suits, shiny watch, but he looked tired in his Facebook photos. The smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. One year he locked down his page altogether, probably because someone was asking too many questions. I kept tabs through the grapevine. Small towns love a scandal, and Travis was always too careless to cover his tracks completely. The whispers came in bits and pieces. First, his wife Megan, sweet lady, the kind who bakes for the church bake sale and takes Pilates at the community center, she started getting suspicious. The flowers were the tipping point. She asked about them. He lied. She found the postcards. He lied again. But lies only stretch so far. Then, the big one. Apparently back when Travis went on tour, he'd come back with more than cheap souvenirs. Rumor had it Megan got sick, real sick, with something that made the rounds between the sheets. He'd somehow weaseled his way out of blame back then, convinced her she must have caught it at a dirty public restroom or some nonsense. So when the flowers started hinting at a secret child, same timeline, same country, it was like dropping a match on gasoline. Megan connected the dots in a way I hadn't even planned for. I only wanted him to sweat, maybe panic a little. But when you live on lies, even a gentle nudge can blow your whole house down. About 3 weeks ago, Jake called me up, laughing so hard he could barely get the words out. He'd run into Travis at the local dive bar, alone, no wedding ring, half drunk and bitter as an old lemon. Turns out, Megan finally kicked him out. She filed for divorce, took the house, and cleaned out half his retirement savings. His real estate business? Done. Word got out that he'd been lying to clients. Maybe not exactly about titles like mine, but shady enough that people lost trust. In a town like ours, reputation is your currency. Once it's gone, you might as well pack up and leave. Jake asked me if I felt bad. Honestly, sometimes yeah. I'm human. I never wanted his kids, real or not, to suffer. Never wanted Megan to get hurt the way she did. But when I remember the sleepless nights, the hidden fees, the legal stress I had to carry alone while he cashed in his commission check, that guilt shrivels up like old fruit. In the end, all I did was peel back the lies he'd built around himself. I didn't break his marriage, he did. I didn't bankrupt his business, he did. I just held up a mirror once a year and let karma handle the rest. Some nights I sit out back in my hammock, beer in hand, Natalie reading beside me, and I think maybe patience really is my superpower. Travis thought he'd screwed me over for good, but I've still got my little house. My dog snores by my feet. I wake up every day knowing that every inch of this place is truly mine. And somewhere out there, Travis Miller is probably still wondering if Elle ever plans to knock on for child support.
I'll drink to that. A funny thing happens when you stop feeding hate and start feeding patience. You grow roots, solid ones. Somewhere along the line, while I was playing ghostwriter for Elle, I stopped being that bitter guy sitting alone in his half-wrong house and became someone who laughed at it all instead. See, revenge has a way of consuming people. I didn't want that. I never wanted to lose myself the way Travis lost everything else. So once Megan left him, once word got around that the mighty Travis Miller was living alone in a cramped rental on the edge of town, I stopped sending flowers. I figured the point had been made. About 2 months after his divorce, I actually ran into him. I was grabbing a burger at Pete's Grill. It's one of those spots every local drifts through at least once a week. The smell of fries and fryer grease stuck to your clothes for hours afterward. He was sitting at the counter alone, hunched over a glass of cheap whiskey at 2 in the afternoon. Our eyes met. I swear the guy turned a shade of gray I didn't even know skin could do. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. In a way, maybe he had. I gave him a polite nod, the same nod I'd give a stranger. Then I ordered my burger, tipped Pete an extra $5 for putting up with my chatter, and walked right back out. Didn't say a word to Travis. Didn't need to. He knew. That night, when I told Natalie about it, she laughed so hard she nearly spit wine all over my couch. She's the only person I ever told the full story to. Not Jake, not my mom, just Natalie. And you know what she said? "You're a diabolical genius, Mitch Harper. I'm glad you're on my side." She's got a point. But let me be clear, it wasn't genius. It was survival. I didn't have money for lawyers or stomach for public drama, so I used what I had: time, creativity, and an understanding of how shame can destroy a man faster than any lawsuit. Sometimes I think about writing Travis a letter, telling him the whole truth, that there is no Elle, no daughter, no hidden child. But then I think, what for? He'd either never believe me or he'd pretend none of it mattered, and either way it wouldn't change who he is. Better to let him sit with the ghost he created. Meanwhile, life got better for me in ways I didn't expect. My little misfortune with the property actually taught me a ton about real estate. I got so familiar with titles, deeds, insurance, and local zoning laws that I started helping friends navigate their own purchases. It turned into a hobby, then a side hustle. Last year, I got my own real estate license. The irony isn't lost on me. Jake jokes that if I ever run for city council, my campaign slogan should be, "Trust Mitch, he hates crooks more than you do." Not a bad line, honestly. As for Travis, I hear things now and then. He tried to restart his business under a new name, but the internet's forever. A couple of bad reviews and whispers about shady paperwork killed that off quick. Last I heard, he's working at a call center 3 towns over. Nothing wrong with honest work, but for a guy who used to drive a BMW and brag about closing million-dollar deals, well, it's a long fall from that leather seat to a cubicle under fluorescent lights. Sometimes people ask me if I'd do it again, knowing how far it would go. It's a fair question. I never set out to ruin his whole life. I just wanted him to feel what I felt. Blindsided, powerless, cornered. Maybe I went too far. Maybe not far enough. Life's funny like that. The scale of right and wrong keeps tipping depending on where you stand. But here's the part that makes me sleep easy. I never broke the law. I never lied outright. I never called his wife or spread rumors. I just planted seeds, patiently watered them, and let the truth about Travis do the rest. He was the architect of his own downfall. I was just the gentle wind that knocked over the first brick. One quiet Sunday last fall, I found one last postcard in my desk drawer, a leftover, never mailed, bright blue with a cartoon elephant on the front and a blank space for a note. I almost tossed it, but instead I wrote a message, just for myself. Dear Mitch, remembering you on this your special day. You did good. Love, Karma. I laughed so hard I scared my dog awake. Then I burned that card in the fire pit out back. Some things deserve an ending. And if you're wondering if I still get a petty thrill when I pass by Travis's old office, now an insurance branch run by an old high school buddy of mine, yeah, I do. But that thrill gets smaller every year, because revenge may have been sweet, but peace tastes even better. I'm Mitch Harper. I own my house, my mistakes, and my patience. And if I ever get screwed over again, well, let's just say I've got a whole new set of tricks, but that's a story for another day.
Time has a way of polishing even the dirtiest memories until they shine like old coins in your pocket. Now, when I sit on my back porch with a cold beer and listen to the wind rustle the branches overhead, I think about all the ways this story could have gone. If I had sued Travis, maybe I'd have won a tidy settlement, but I'd have spent years in courtrooms, paying lawyers more than I'd ever see back. I'd have lost sleep, lost peace, maybe even lost my house trying to pay legal fees. He'd have spun it as a misunderstanding or blamed it on paperwork mistakes. And who knows, maybe he'd have won. Instead, I picked a slower road, a quiet road, the one where I didn't need a gavel, just patience. I let Travis ruin himself. All I did was nudge him toward the cliff.
I never set out to be some hero. I'm no knight in shining armor, no mastermind villain either. I'm just a regular guy who got wronged and chose to write his own ending. Folks love to say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're half right. In my experience, revenge is best served slow. Drip by drip, like water wearing down a rock until the whole damn boulder cracks in half. I'd be lying if I told you I didn't sometimes feel a twinge of guilt. Travis didn't just lose a marriage and a house, he lost his pride, his reputation, his career. Some nights I wonder if I went too far, if maybe a man should be allowed to outrun his sins after paying a fair price. But then I remember that he didn't care when he pocketed my dreams and handed me a lie wrapped in a contract. He didn't care when I begged for fairness. He laughed. So maybe this was just a case of life evening the scales. I didn't ruin Travis Miller. Travis Miller ruined Travis Miller. I just wrote him a few love notes along the way. You might be wondering what happened to everyone else in the circus. Madely's still my best friend. Last year, she got engaged to Jake. Yeah, my neighbor. Turns out when you spend enough nights swapping beers and stories on someone's back porch, you can't help but fall in love. I gave a toast at their wedding last month, and half the people there were dying to know if the rumor about me sending secret flowers for 6 years was true. I told them, some stories are best left mysterious. Mom's doing well too. She retired to Florida. Typical, I know. She jokes that my revenge tale will be her favorite bedtime story when she's in her rocker on the porch, yelling at the neighborhood kids to stay off her lawn. As for me, these days I still live in the same house. Sure, it's got more rules than I wanted, but it's mine. Over the years, I've fixed it up piece by piece. New roof, fresh paint, a garden out back where I grow tomatoes, and a stubborn patch of mint that refuses to die no matter how cold the winter gets. Sometimes I walk down that old shared walkway and remember when I used to see it as a chain around my neck. Now, it's just concrete under my feet. Funny how the things that feel like prison walls turn out to be nothing at all once you learn to stand tall. There's a moral here, but I won't spell it out for you like a fortune cookie. Maybe it's this. No one can protect you from getting hurt. Not a lawyer, not a contract, not even the law. People lie. People cheat. Life kicks you in the teeth when you're sure you're finally safe. But you can protect your soul if you're patient enough to breathe, plot, and smile while you wait. I don't recommend revenge for everyone. Some folks just aren't built for it. It can rot you from the inside if you let it take over your days and nights. But if you can keep your heart light and your mind sharp, it can be sweeter than justice itself. Travis Miller will never know who Elle was. He'll never know why those flowers showed up every year, or why every time he tried to run from what he'd done, the reminders waited for him like ghosts in the mailbox. Maybe someday he'll tell himself it was all a bad dream. Maybe he'll tell his new friends he was framed. Doesn't matter to me. I sleep just fine. And if you ever find yourself sipping a beer alone on your porch, replaying the moment someone betrayed you, take it from me. Don't waste your time with rage. Instead, sharpen your mind, soften your heart, and let the years do the dirty work. Karma always needs a helper. Be that helper if you must. I'm Mitch Harper. I'm no saint. But if you ever hear about some poor fool in my town who thinks he can get away with screwing over the next unsuspecting soul, well, maybe I'll send him a card. Signed, Love Elle.
If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.